Whoa! Welcome to the final episode of the Russ Joy Show here in the year 2024. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. You've gotten even smarter this year, but you're still smart and getting smarter each and every day. It's also the name of the show. Welcome in, everybody. It is the end of the year. I woke up late this morning. This is on me. This one's on me. I will take responsibility. You might be able to see here. Why are you wearing a hat, Russ? You can see that. Do a little zoomage this morning. But I woke up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, oh no. I was like, this is going to take too much time. Look at this. I got like Jerry curls here or something. But my hair this morning legitimately looked like I could have been an extra in a Hanson cover band. And I'm not starting off, or I'm not closing out 2024 singing Bop. Not this morning. We have so much to get into. We're going to talk, of course, about Eagles, Cowboys, about Saquon Barkley eclipsing the 2,000-yard mark, which makes him only the 9th running back in NFL history to get beyond 2,000 yards. We're going to talk about whether or not he should go after the record in Week 18. The Eagles are officially locked into the number 2 seed. Washington punched their ticket in overtime. So you have another NFC East team. The Giants, meanwhile, have now somehow cost themselves the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. They could continue to fall if they somehow lose again in Week 18. Drew Lock, after that game, said the fans deserve it. The organization deserves it. I don't think he realizes what he was saying, but they do deserve that. They deserve all the worst things, especially for a team that didn't want to have Saquon Barkley around. So we're going to get to all that. Plus, I want to take a look back at some of the best and the worst of 2024, and I'm going to give you a few predictions. And it's very hard to make predictions a full year in advance, but I'm going to give you some just general predictions of what is to come in 2025. Oh, and by the way, our winner from the Drive to 500 giveaway has not reached out, which means that today we will be doing a redrawing for the Drive to 500 jersey giveaway. Now, if the person who gets picked today doesn't get it in time, if they don't respond to me by next week, it will be a live drawing next Monday, which is like the 5th or whatever. I think it's the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th? Is it the 6th? Whatever it is. Next Monday. I think it's the 6th. Then it would be a live drawing. So anybody who's in the chat who is subscribed to the channel will only be those people. Because we can't do this multiple times. All right, we're doing it a second time now because the first winner didn't claim it within a week. So all the people who are in the chat today, you can once again be part of the excitement and the chaos. I will reset that gigantic wheel of names. We'll do that later on in the show. Perhaps it'll be somebody whose name is a little bit more familiar, who's in the chat all the time. Perhaps it'll be somebody who is not. We'll find out. That'll be later on in the show. But first, I want to go out to the comments because that, of course, is the lifeblood of this show. And I want to see what people are thinking here. We are 1 day away from New Year's Eve. We're 2 days away from New Year's Day as we flip the script to yet another season. Maybe some of you have had a great 2024. Maybe some of you had a terrible one. I don't actually know how much it matters when we flip the calendar, but we'll check out what we think. So I'm going to go out to the comments. Andrew Fawcett weighs in on Saquon Barkley to start. Says, please sit Barkley next week. In my opinion, if he breaks the record, it wouldn't be the same because he had an extra game to do it. I'm going to tell you why I don't like that line of thinking, but I still respect it, Andrew. He also drops a morning all. Chris Freed, pork shoulder or tubular meat for New Year's Day? I'll tell you what we're doing in this house. And I'll tell you about what we've done the last few years. And it is next level incredible. Unbelievable. Andrew Fawcett says, isn't that the same thing in slightly different form? Jamie responds, good morning, everyone. Jamie says that in her family, it's jambalaya. Jambalaya on New Year's. That's interesting. Where did that come from? I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody having jambalaya. See, for us, Peter's here. For us, it was always pork and sauerkraut and homemade mashed potatoes. That was always New Year's Day. New Year's Eve was always like some kind of seafood. But I'm going to tell you what we do because it's a little bit different. Jamie says the smell of sauerkraut, a little bit too much for her. Hey, anybody who needs a little bit of help with the sauerkraut, all right, if you're ever, I'll give you a little Joy family recipe. Although I think it actually came from my mom's side of the family, so it's really not the Joy side. It must have been passed down through all the Slovaks. But you add some brown sugar and some caraway seeds. Not a lot. Caraway seeds are very, very strong. Add brown sugar. Now, it might sound kind of gross at first, but sauerkraut, brown sugar, some caraway seeds. It takes the really edgy part of the sauerkraut off. It still gives you the essence of it. It kind of brightens things up a little bit. It makes it significantly more tolerable if you don't like regular sauerkraut. Just trust me. Andrew Fawcett says, love sauerkraut, superfood. If you're into fermented foods and the gut biome, sauerkraut's supposed to be pretty good for you. We got Chris Freed shouting out over to Andrew Fawcett. Ford is here. Everybody can relax. Says, sort of here. Family in town. Won't be able to tune in the entire time. Keep me posted on the dude who won. I don't think his name was Matt, though. No, it was Kevin Motz. Kevin Motz did not claim the jersey, and unfortunately, that means that we have to do a redrawing of the Drive to 500 jersey giveaway, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to redraw. It's all about accountability here at this show. Let's see. Nico checks in with a what up. Allison is here with a hello. Let's see. Jamie says, love to see the other jambalaya eaters in here. I don't eat it enough. I should make it other times throughout the year. I want to know where that came from, Jamie. Is that a passed down family tradition? Is that just because of an anti-sauerkraut bias? Is there an anti-sauerkraut agenda? Is big unfermented food trying to get to you? Landros 2 with the good morning. Nico says, fly, Eagles, fly. AJ Snap says, you've got real middle of the winter break energy. Yeah, I know. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not hungover, but I certainly look like I could be. But I'm not, which is always great. Andrew Fawcett loves this is for my wife. This was from Christmas. The Russ Funko with the little coffee cup and the phone. Looks like Kurt Russell's friend in Overboard. I'll have to look. Allison, send me that picture. You can DM that to me over on Twitter, and I'll pull it up here because I don't know which actor that is, and I haven't seen Overboard, so I don't know who the friend is. Nico says, glad to see Jerry Jones. Got to see the Birds clinch in person. We're going to get to that as well because I do have that. Chris Freed says, Nostradamus. It's actually Rustradamus, Chris. Do you forecast Penn State and Notre Dame winning this week, setting up the 20th clash between the schools? Will hustling Notre Dame students go old school and sell Catholics versus pedos t-shirts for the game? I don't know. I don't really care. I'm going to watch college football. I will watch the playoff. I just don't really care. I grew up cheering for Penn State because everybody in my hometown cheered for Penn State, or most did. Some cheered for Notre Dame. I don't really care anyway. Yeah, like either way. I want good games. It's not like one of those things where it's just like, oh, I want the teams to have fun. The real winners today are the fans. But like, I don't feel very passionately about any college football team. I'll tell you who I cheer for. I cheer for the Westchester University Golden Rams. And if and when they ever become a D1 team, I'll cheer for them. In the meantime, I'll cheer for them in D2. And that's fine. Are they better than you, Dell? 610-632-0975. Let's see. Landros says, I'm excited. I might not even be registered properly. You are, Landros, I think. I think I added you manually to the thing. Andrew Fawcett says, Wheel of Chaos. Chris Freed, Eagles and Green Bay in the wild card will not be easy. There's a good chance the game will be played on Monday night. We'll get there in a little bit. Sean C. with a little bit of Flyers talk, which we'll get to at some point as well. It's not Kolosov anymore. It's Alexei Kolosiv. Intern Andrew dropped that a couple of weeks ago. I wish I had all the time I wasted worrying about him in the summer and the fall back. Send him to that hotel room or let him go back home. He's not above the NHL. Jamie giving a little bit of clarification here about the jambalaya. Came from her grandmother. She made it every year, and the tradition stuck. I like that. AJ says, if you want to get some real good meat tubes, go to Chev's in Philly. That's down in Port Richmond, I think, right? Fresh kielbasa, made every day. I make the drive up to Cova Lennox in Shendo, but I've had Chev's before. It's very good. I encourage anybody who has any kind of heritage that's remotely like Polish adjacent, Slovak, Czech. I encourage all of you. Kielbasa, it fills your heart with joy. And probably a lot of things that'll like kill you eventually, like lots of fats and not great things. But you know what? That's part of what it is to just grow up with that side of the world in your heart. Let's see. Chris Freed says, singer needs to do a cover of the song Who Let the Dogs Out and have a music video that's made of just players from the Cowboys, Jets, Panthers, Texans, and Browns. Jeez. Okay. There are a lot more comments over here. Connor Allen saying good morning to Bucky. Both Buckies are here. This Bucky will be gone probably by Wednesday, going back in with all the Christmas decorations, and we love him and we appreciate him. And Andrew Fawcett is an absolute saint and a gem of a human being, a mensch of the sench, for sending this to me. Thank you, Andrew, once again. All right, let's get ourselves back on track. And Ford asks, did the dude claim his prize? He did not, so we're going to redo the drawing later in the episode. Okay, new drawing today. And if the person who wins the drawing today doesn't respond within a week, we're going to do a live chat only drawing, which will then take some of you from having like a 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 or whatever the hell chance it is. It'll take you all the way to be like one of, I don't know, we're usually around like 1 out of 30 something on the live stream across the different platforms. So we shall see. Now, just a reminder, if you're watching over on X and you're like, oh, why aren't my comments showing up? Remember, you have to click on the video first and then go into the old Periscope mode and you can comment there. And I can bring your comments up on the screen. All right, so there's a lot to get into today. I will tell you, because I mentioned a little bit ago about like the traditions, about New Year's traditions. I have a very simple thing that we do as a family. I'll get there with the predictions. I'll let you know how we're going to ring in the new year food-wise, because we don't go traditional pork and sauerkraut anymore, even though pork and sauerkraut with mashed potatoes used to be, and still is, one of my favorite things about this time of year. I'll let you know what we do a little bit later. Somebody remind me, okay? All right, so we have a lot of stuff going on in Philly sports, and the most notable, of course, is Saquon Barkley eclipses the 2,000 yards mark, which is next-level stuff. When the Eagles signed Barkley, if you remember on this show, we just kind of had that conversation about, are we going to overrate what he's going to be capable of? Because typically with Philly sports teams and free agents, we often overvalue what a guy's going to be able to do. We overinflate this idea of like what the guy's actually going to be able to accomplish. And a lot of times we're left kind of feeling burned. It doesn't happen all the time. There are standouts to some extent, and this all kind of comes back to maybe individual performance, maybe the more so than the overall results, right? These aren't championship acquisitions at this point. But Bryce Harper, Terrell Owens, they stand out as two that were really big free agent acquisitions that came in that fundamentally altered the entire course of the team. You, of course, have some guys that have, we could probably even throw Schwarber in there. I think we could throw Schwarber. It's been a pretty big deal for this team. So we'll include Schwarber. I think it's fine. Paul George maybe could be that guy. We don't know yet. Still very early. But then we know that like there have been signings in the past that haven't worked out well. DeMarco Murray comes to mind. Javon Curse, the Freak. There was a hope that he was going to be a long-term piece of that defense for an Eagles Super Bowl contender. That didn't exactly play out. Chris Webber, Elton Brand. Those are just a couple. Tobias Harris, though he was traded for first. Not every free agent signing works out. Saquon Barkley has more than worked out. Saquon Barkley, we have said all season on this show, he has not only met every expectation, he's not only exceeded every expectation, he has by far gone out of the park with each and every expectation that anyone could have had. And the best part, the absolute best part about Saquon Barkley now rushing for over 2,000 yards and having a legitimate chance, if he / the team want him to go for it in Week 18, is that he needs 101 yards on the ground against a Giants team that decided he wasn't worth $12 million a year, which was captured by Hard Knocks, which went out to the entire world. That included the owner saying, I can't handle it if he goes to Philadelphia. Couldn't stomach it. The Giants got rid of the quarterback that they used as the justification. You can't have a $40 million quarterback handing off to a $12 million running back. He's gone. The Giants just probably cost themselves a shot at Shedeur Sanders by winning on Sunday against the Colts. And now Barkley would have a chance to break the all-time single-season rushing record against that same Giants team. That's an absolute thing of beauty. Now, I know where a lot of people go. I know where almost everyone's head is going to go. And that is Saquon Barkley shouldn't go for the record. What about the risk of injury? You are officially out of the number one overall seed conversation because Minnesota beat a fraudulent Packers team. There's no way on earth that Saquon Barkley should go for the rushing record. That's what a lot of people are saying. Many people are saying. I have to tell you. And this might surprise many. This might surprise no one. I want him to go for it, but only if he wants to go for it. I only want Saquon Barkley to go after the record if this organization decides he has been such a model citizen and he has been so dominant on so many levels, we want him to go for it. And I'm going to show you a clip or two and some comments out there from his teammates post-game. Because some people said, well, if Barkley goes after it, it's selfish. What if he gets hurt? Yada, yada, yada. First, I'm going to go out to Saquon Barkley because he's been kind of getting asked about it now for a few weeks. And I think it's really important to observe the body language, listen to his words, look at his facial reactions, and then, like I said, we'll get to some of his teammates. But I want you to just see, at least for a second here, where Saquon Barkley, where his head is at, and whether or not he really wants to go after it. And we're going to throw this over, courtesy of NBC Sports Philadelphia, who did the transcription here. But this is Saquon Barkley talking about the chance to go after the record and what it means to eclipse 2,000 yards, becoming only the 9th running back in history to do so. Here's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Just being a fan of the game and the running back position, to reach a milestone and put myself up there with 8 other backs that I respect, and some of them I grew up watching, definitely means a lot. But at the same time, I wouldn't be able to do that with this team. And like I said, you can't be great without the greatness of others, and I'm just happy I was able to be a part of the team and be able to reach a milestone like that.
Shot the record.
So there's your first part. Your first part was just simply the honor of joining a very select group of people to eclipse 2,000 yards. That's one. So it's like 2 parts to this. When you sign with a new team, your thought, certainly at his point in his career, it's not like he's old, but by running back standards, right? Like he's got 3-ish years of like really good performance left. Some would argue. I'd say it based on how he looks right now. It certainly looks like that window's far more open with Saquon Barkley. He seems to take very good care of himself. Great offensive line in front of him. Relatively young offensive line. They've had some turnover, and it still continues to perform at maybe the highest level it ever has. So he didn't sign here to cross 2,000 yards. He didn't sign here to get himself in position to set the all-time single-season rushing record. But now this part about whether or not he goes for the record, this is where we get back to Saquon. And again, I want you to pay attention to the facials. I want you to pay attention to the body language. I want you to pay attention to the words. Let's see what Saquon Barkley says when asked specifically, are you going for the record?
The way I look at it, if it's in God's plan, then it is. If I'm not, overly trying to go get it. I'm not scared of it. Like I would love to, but at the end of the day, also we got bigger things that we're focusing on, and we're able to clinch the division right here. And whether it's we play next week or not and rest, I'm fine with that too, because I didn't come here and sign here just to rush for 2,000 or break a record. I want to do something special, and meaning special with the team.
That is exactly the kind of answer that Saquon Barkley has been giving all year. That's a team-first mentality. But notice Notice how he initially responded. The smile, the pause, the sheepish grin, the look at the reporter. Dude wants to go for the record. And who could blame him? Okay? Now, some people want to make the argument, and I have not listened to Sports Talk Radio today, but I have an idea of how it's going to go, and I'm probably not going to tune in specifically because I just don't have it in me to care what some of those people have to say. But what I will tell you is this. There are going to be people who are going to say Saquon Barkley is selfish if he wants to go for it. Those people are idiots. And by all means, if clips start going around today from either radio station, and it's somebody saying Saquon is selfish if he goes after, I want you to tag me. Ford will. But I want you to tag me in it. And I would like to have a conversation with those radio hosts. Because Barkley has been the antithesis of selfish. Earlier this season, when he had the opportunity to set a career high for a single game rushing total against his former team, the Giants, he said, no. Let the other guys eat. Let the young guys eat. He was caught on the sideline saying, I'm good. Like, I've kind of done everything that I wanted to do in this game. I've made my point. And in fact, like, maybe Barkley would have already set the rushing record had he gone back in against a Giants team that could not stop him earlier this season. He clearly wants to go out and at least have the opportunity. When you're a young player and you think about, like, getting to the league, there are very few things that you kind of set as an eventual hope or expectation, right? If you're a running back, there are probably two things, maybe three. All right, let's say three things that you want. You want to win a Super Bowl. That's every player. You want to win a Super Bowl. And if you're a running back, the single season rushing record is probably up there. Maybe winning MVP is up there, even though it's mostly a quarterback award at this point, has been for a decade and a half. Can you blame him? He's 101 yards away. He's not 165 yards away. He's 101 yards away. He's going to play his former team, all of whom speak glowingly of the guy. So if there's like the fear out there, and it seems to be, right? There's the fear that like, well, what if Barkley gets hurt? That kills your chance at the Super Bowl. To which I say, you know what? You're right. You know what could also happen? He can go out wild card round after not playing next week, and he can pull a hammy, and he's out for the playoffs. That's football. That's sports. I think that no matter what, I would actually like to see the starters go out and maybe get a series in. I think that's fair. Like, I get that you can't have a bye week. This could be a bye week for you, Russ. I hate to remind people, but like this Eagles team in the beginning of the season, when they didn't have the preseason, it took them a while to get tuned back up. Jalen Hurts has now missed almost 2 full games. We don't know if he's going to be cleared for Week 18 or not. Do I want to put Jalen Hurts in a position where he's at risk to get another concussion? No, I don't. Could I see that if he gets like cleared today, maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, that you say, you know what, we want to give Jalen Hurts one drive against the Giants in Week 18 to work on timing, to make sure that this team is going to be not only fresh by like taking off at least 3 quarters, but like is still in sync and Hurts gets back out there with the guys. Do I think it's the worst thing in the world? No. If an injury happens, you address it when it gets there. I'll go on record right now. Like, I would actually be more worried about putting Hurts out there and risking another concussion than I would about having Barkley go out and play his former team. His former team speaks glowingly about him. The idea of like, oh, there's going to be a dirty hit. The Giants aren't going to win and be embarrassed. Those Giants players probably, I would assume, many of them are on Barkley's side, that it was an abject failure by the New York Giants organization to let him go. And I would almost guarantee you that those Giants players, in some way, want to see Saquon Barkley set that record because it sticks it to a front office that decided he was not the problem, but he wasn't worth it. But Daniel Jones was. I don't see a dirty hit coming. I think Saquon can go out there and over the course of maybe like a quarter and a half could probably get to 101 yards. So if it's like, hey, play the first half. You tell Saquon, look, you're getting the first quarter. Depending on the situation, you might get the second quarter. Go out there and have fun. See if you can break the record. Saquon said there in that clip that ultimately if the team decides to rest the starters, decides to rest the offense, he's fine with it because that's what a good leader and a good teammate says. on a human level, I would love to see Saquon Barkley get to go for the record. Everybody can make the argument, they're like, oh, you're really hurting your chances at the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl. One team wins the Super Bowl every year, okay? There's no guarantee you win a Super Bowl. You let Saquon Barkley go out for the record, you're giving him a really strong chance to go down in the history books. And for a guy who's been a consummate professional, I think you kind of owe it to him to let him go out and see if he can get it. And again, maybe give him a half. Tell him you're not playing the whole game. Like, no matter what, starters are out in the second half. Doesn't matter. You're locked into the number 2 seed. This is history, man. And like from an organizational perspective, the Super Bowl is obviously the ultimate goal. It's the thing that you want more than anything. But there is a little bit of bragging rights. And there's a little bit of, the guy who goes into the Hall of Fame, maybe he goes in as an Eagle. If he's here for, long enough. Maybe he goes into the Hall of Fame as an Eagle. Within the Hall of Fame, Saquon Barkley is the one who has the single-season rushing record. And maybe there's a picture of him doing the reverse hurdle in the Kelly Green jersey. I don't think it's like an immature stance to take. I don't think it's an extreme stance to take. I think that just based on what he's done this season, the kind of guy that he's been behind the scenes, the guy that he's been on the field, the guy that we've seen in some of those behind-the-scenes cutaways on the sideline, let him go for it. Give him limited time, but let him go for it in Week 18. Let the chips fall where they may. And then be ready for wild card round, which might end up being against Green Bay. We'll see. I'm going to go out to the comments. I'm going to see where people are at. I know that like there's kind of been some condescension, we'll say, on Twitter over the last like 12 hours or so, where you get a lot of people saying, the people who want to see him go after the record, they don't know ball. You got to get everybody ready for the wild card round. Fine. It's 101 yards. You're either good or you're not. You're either a team that can go out and get the job done or not. Now, the only thing that I could really look at and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there is a point, is that the Eagles' bye week was super early this season, and they really haven't had a week off. Like, maybe we can make that case. If you really want to try, you might be able to. And maybe you can convince me. And there was a comment, by the way, that I do want to get to. I had the video, and now I don't have the video. I'm going to see if I could find it. But it was about, I think it was A.J. Brown was the one who talked about Saquon and whether or not he should go after the record. And when I find it, here it is. I got it. We're good. Let's go out. This is one of the clips of A.J. Brown. This is just him talking about the guy that Barkley has been for this team in the locker room, all that. And then I'm going to get to the one right after it about whether or not he should be allowed to go after the record. So here's A.J. Brown post-game with John Clark talking about what Saquon Barkley has been like for this team this season.
Guys, I really don't think people understand how hard that is to do. Go get 2,000 yards in a season is extremely hard. Hats off to the entire team, blocking O-line, tight ends, even the wideouts, But he's an unbelievable talent, man. It couldn't happen to a better person, honestly. He's a great teammate. And so to see guys to do milestones like that, it means the world to us because he's a great teammate, a great person.
So that was the first one. Now, I want to actually get to his comment. I mean, that's somebody who's got admiration for their teammate, right? Like, that's a genuine response. And I want to take people back really quickly to this offseason. Derrick Henry was available. Saquon Barkley was available. Teams like the Cowboys didn't even think it was worth having a meeting with those guys because they were going to request too much money. Like, Derrick Henry's had a fantastic season. Had it not been for Saquon going over 2,000, I think Henry's around, 1,789, something like that, close to 1,800 yards himself. Like, good on Derrick Henry. It's almost like the big boys showed up to play this year, that the star running backs have shown up to play in a big way and almost kind of rebuild the entire free agent market potentially for their fellow running backs. Okay, now, I'm going to get out to A.J. Brown because, as I mentioned before, A.J. Brown had something very interesting to say about whether or not Saquon Barkley should go for the rushing record and how he would feel. Now, keep in mind, we just said these guys haven't had a week off since, week 5 was the bye. I bet a lot of these guys would like to have a little bit of rest. I want you to hear what A.J. Brown had to say in the locker room about whether or not Saquon should go for it and what he thinks about the situation.
Saquon hit that number.
Excited for him. He was trying so hard, guys. He was trying so hard. You know, I told him to get it done, but be safe, and I'm happy for him.
Do you want to see him go? Do you want to see him go for the all-time rushing record next week?
Of course. Why not? You know, I want to be a part of that. You know, so looking back on the years, I'll say, hey, that's my teammate. You know, and he did it.
It's viewed as a Saquon thing, but you just said it. Like, what do you think it would mean for the team if he were to set that record?
It means it'll mean a lot. You know, history purposes. You know, like I said, I like to say when I'm talking to my kids, I was a part of Saquon when he did that. You know, part of the team when he did that. So, who knows what happens next week? So we'll see.
So that came courtesy of it was Elliot Shore Parks who was the one who filmed and had the question there. But like, there you go. So Barkley, pretty much throughout the season, when his success on the ground has been brought up, said this has a lot to do with the team. It's not just me. Like I run through the holes. I'm the one who like goes and picks up the yards, but like it's the line, it's the receivers helping, it's everything. It's the entire team that helps get him that kind of success. And what does A.J. Brown say? A.J. Brown, who, by the way, at least some people in Philly sports media tried to paint as a horribly selfish human being who doesn't want to be here. A.J. Brown says, I want to be part of that. We've all seen what he's done and accomplished. We've all had a hand in it. Yeah, it'd be really cool to say I was on that team that helped him get to the all-time single-season rushing record. Nick Sirianni, right? Nick Sirianni has a very hard decision to make. Now, it's hard and it's not, right? Because traditionally, you say, give your starters the week off, see you guys again in wild card round. This week really doesn't mean anything. Have fun out there. By the way, if you play your backups and the Giants win, again, it'll further tank their draft pick, which is hilarious. But Nick Sirianni has to, he probably is going to have a conversation with a few of the leaders on the team and get the pulse of the locker room. Because if the offense, for example, is die hard about going after this record for Saquon with Saquon, you kind of have to give them the opportunity. So, if you want to think about momentum, right? Momentum's a hell of a thing. If you tell the starters, hey, totally get it. It's been an awesome season. We love Saquon. We love what he's done. And at the same time, we have to do what's best to try to get to the Super Bowl. You have to make that decision today. That has to be today. Because there might be a little bit of a gut punch, and then everybody says, all right, makes sense. We're good. However, if this Eagles team goes out, and again, it's first quarter or first half, right? This offense goes out there. Saquon sets the single season record. Do you know what that's going to do for that locker room? Do you know what that kind of a momentous occasion is going to do for that locker room? For confidence. To be able to go into the playoffs saying, yo, Jalen Hurts can sling that ball around. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are absolute killers at the wide receiver position. Oh, and by the way, we have the guy in the backfield who just set the single-season rushing record. You're going to ride an ultimate high going into the playoffs. And that's the kind of thing that, man, if you couldn't end your season on a super long winning streak like you would have had it not been for last week, the next best thing is, we set a record. That's how dominant we are in the trenches. That's how dominant we are down the field blocking. That's how dominant this running back is. I would like to see them give him a chance. Will they? I don't know. We'll find out. I would assume that we'll find out today, Tuesday at the latest. We'll see. I certainly hope that they at least entertain the idea, and they do it safely. I think that's the other big thing. A.J. Brown said, Saquon was really trying to get over 2,000 yards, and A.J. told him, just do it safely. Be safe. Don't make any stupid plays. Don't make any kind of risky plays. Get the ball where it needs to go. Feel good about it, and move on. So, cool. We're kind of... Some of us are in agreement here. Some of us are not. I'm going to go out to the comments here really quickly, and then I want to move on because there is so much more to get to, including some things about 2024, 2025, and we have to do the redrawing for the jersey So we're going to get there in a second as well. All right, let's see. Ford asked me what the hat is. This is Jack Brown's down in Outer Banks. Jack Brown's burgers and beer. Love Jack Brown's. Great place. Apparently there are a few locations. I think there's like one in Alabama. There are some around the South. But the only one that I recognize as of right now is the only one I've been to, which is in the Outer Banks. I think it's in Kill Devil Hills. Got to figure out getting back to Outer Banks this year. I'm a little bit late on getting the house. I had to do that. Dee Skinner says, Saquon has brought me so much joy. Magical man. So grateful. I love that. Absolutely love that. Andrew Fawcett said, I had hopes for Curse. Sean C. says, I think Javon Curse was my first ever Eagles jersey. Andrew Fawcett said he had the black one. I have a Javon Curse jersey. I had a lot of hopes for the freak. I had very, very high hopes. Landros thinks that the Eagles should absolutely let Saquon go for it. Ford agrees. Definitely let him go for it. Greg Bondarenko over on YouTube. Hello, Greg. I don't remember seeing your name here at least for a little while. So hello, welcome. Says, I'd love to see him go for it, and doing it at home against his former team is icing on the cake. I agree. I think that's actually the part of it that's even better. But like I said, I don't expect a dirty hit. I think this Giants team, while they would competitively want to stop him from setting it, they're not going to take a shot at the guy's knee, right? He was a very well-liked player in that locker room. I don't think you're going to have to run the risk of a dirty hit taking out Saquon for the playoffs because he goes for it. D.D. Skinner said he earned the chance if he wants it. Ford says, I think he definitely wants it, but he's smart enough and humble enough to know it's not all about him. Agree. That's why I brought up the A.J. Brown thing. I think that was interesting. Landros says, I think he wants to go for it, but he's too classy and too good a team player to say it. How wouldn't he want it? That's why we showed that clip, though. It's the sheepish grin that tells me he wants it. And they probably have had that conversation as a team. We'll see. Chris Freed says this is Barkley's career season. Getting the record for the most rushing yards in a season may one day mean the difference between being elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame or being rejected. That's an interesting take. I hadn't thought of that. I think Barkley is probably a Hall of Famer no matter what. One of the most dominant players at that position in this generation. I would say as long as he has a couple of, not 2,000-yard seasons, but a couple more very productive seasons, maybe they win a Super Bowl, he's in. But I get it. I get the sentiment. That shouldn't be overlooked. Ford says he's a pro athlete and a competitor. Of course he wants it. Sean C. says, give Saquon the first quarter or half. If he's on track, let him do it. I only say this because Dickerson seems so bitter about it possibly happening. Yeah, that was one thing about this past weekend that was kind of gross. Made me feel a little bit nasty. Was Dickerson saying I don't want him to go for it, and I mean nobody wants to see the record get broken, right? John Barchard was actually the one that had a really good point about it over the weekend, and it was before the game. Barchard put out this idea that Saquon, sure, he has an extra game. In fairness, let's actually reset this. Let's recalibrate this. Somebody remind me in a minute about why the Saquon versus Dickerson thing by game is nonsensical. I want to get there in a little bit. I'm going to re-rack that in a second. Chris Freed says, we all understand Barkley is going to break down next year like McCaffrey did this year. Best to go for the record. We don't know that, okay? We don't know that. I think Barkley takes really good care of himself. Not that McCaffrey doesn't. Barkley's had some big years put on that body, and yet he looks as good, maybe better than ever. I brought up earlier about Hurts. Does Hurts maybe get to see a quarter? Andrew Fawcett says, I don't even want to see him play. Landros says Sirianni will not play Hurts next week. This is pretty good. Dersh says if there's a Favre-Gastineau blow-up, remember Gastineau was the one who approached Favre in that clip about him taking the flop against Strahan and him losing the all-time sacks record for a single season. Says if it's a blow-up between him and the Giants and Dickerson, I'm all for it. Andrew Fawcett, same thing. It'll be like Favre falling for Strahan. Let's see. AJ says, got to run. Catch the rest of the show later. Go Birds. I hope the Rangers blow everything up. Good luck on the redraw, everyone. I'll be using my win to get a PWHL New York Sirens jersey. We'll have to figure out where to get that if AJ does win. I was with AJ over the weekend. I was with him when the Flyers were playing the Ducks, and Mishkov got benched for the third period, which we might not get into today, but interesting. The Rangers are an absolute mess. I mean, it's bad. It's bad up there. Very bad. Years ago, I think AJ would have absolutely gone for a Rangers jersey. I think he might be embarrassed to be a Rangers fan right now. Chris Freed asking about Texas. We have multiple people who live in Texas. Andrew Fawcett does. Allison lives in Houston. Allison, I know you live in Houston. I like Houston a lot. I want to go back to Houston. Anyway, all right, we're going to try to jump around here really quick. Michael Sirkin says, I believe repetition's key. Get the starters on the field for the first half, then you rest them. You get rusty from taking a week off of anything. I tend to sort of agree, at least a little bit. Ford says, I'm now showering and will return to the chat once done. Yep. Good thing Ford can't call into the show. We don't need, what was the name of the guy from CNN who got himself in a lot of trouble with his newspaper? He was caught on video during what was supposed to be like a work call. Not great. Not ideal. It was like they're legal expert or something. Anyway, yeah, Ford, I don't know if we need to know any. Andrew Fawcett noting about A.J. Brown and about that offense and that room. The joy and cohesion in the room is amazing. That is probably your big takeaway, because the way that last season ended, where there was kind of this collapse and does everybody hate each other? Do they like each other? Right now, it certainly feels like if you're the Eagles, you have to be feeling better about your locker room this year. Peter, who lives down in the Outer Banks, says Jack Brown's is fantastic. I love it. I love that place so much. Okay. I want to get to this Dickerson thing, okay? And I'm going to go to Greg here first, who says the entire argument of the extra game is BS. That's the same as Bernie originally having the record before Brodeur broke it. I want to tell you why I think it's also a ton of BS, okay? So Dickerson has the single-season rushing record. Dickerson did it with an extra game when he broke O.J. Simpson's record. And yet, when people talk about the single-season rushing record, no one says, oh, well, how many games did Dickerson do it, and how many games did O.J. Simpson do it in? But this idea that, like, now all records in football have to remain sacred because a single-season record is now tainted due to the extra game because they now play 17 regular season games instead of 16. That, to me, is nonsense. And so I will simply point out that the league plays, every team plays 17 games. However, 18 could very well be in play. So I hate to tell people this, but like a lot of your favorite single-season records that stand right now probably won't within the next 5 years. And is it because of extra games? Maybe. But guess what? Records are going to fall, and everybody's just going to have to deal with it. Now, over the weekend, I saw the thing going around, and it was John Barchard was the one who kind of put out, stop worrying about the amount of games. Let's look at how many rushes these guys had. And I think it was like Saquon would have had about 65 more rushing attempts to get to Dickerson's total. And if he can get it in that many attempts or fewer, then you say, hey, great job, well done, all-time record. So we ended up having, I saw Kevin Kincaid last night, kind of did a little breakdown of this, and it was an updated number after the Eagles game. So I want to take a look at this really quick because I think it actually does matter. I kind of side with games are games. The number of games is the number of games. Nothing's going to change. Here's where we're at. Eric Dickerson and Saquon Barkley after 16 games. Dickerson had 379 carries. Barkley had 345. That's a difference of 34. That's good mental math. Dickerson had 2,105 yards. Barkley had 2,005 yards. That is a difference of 100 yards. Dickerson averaged 5.6 yards per carry. Barkley's actually a little bit better at 5.8 yards per carry. Dickerson, through 16 games, had 131.6 yards per game. Barkley is currently at 125.3 yards per game. So the only real metric there that you go, is maybe the yards per game. And yeah, Dickerson has 100 more yards than Barkley through 16 games. But that's a difference of 34 carries. 34. I mean, if we're being honest here, I think that's actually a pretty fair way to evaluate how effective a guy is. Now, you could make the case, if you're a Dickerson apologist, you're a Dickerson truther, right? You're like, this, it doesn't matter. Games are games. Barkley didn't break it. That's it. I don't know what to say to you. All right. This record's going to fall. Saquon might break it this year, and there could be a running back, maybe Derrick Henry next year, breaks Barkley's record. You have no idea. But I look at that and I say 34 fewer carries. Barkley's not going to get it 34 times in Week 18 if he gets to go for it at all. And I think he'll probably break the record. And again, good for Saquon Barkley if he does, and good for the Eagles if he does. To me, it's kind of an easy call. But maybe I'm crazy. Chris Reed is right, by the way. It was 2 games. Dickerson did it in 2 extra games, as opposed to OJ. OJ set his record in 14 games. Dickerson had 16. So to me, imagine this. A pro athlete with a record potentially being hypocritical. Oh, no, never. Yeah, it's happening. So Eric Dickerson set the single-season record in 16 games, breaking O.J. Simpson's record, which was accomplished in 14 games. And now Dickerson is apparently this like bastion of morality, and now he gets to kind of set the terms of what's acceptable and not. Barkley has 34 remaining carries to reach the amount of total carries Dickerson had in the season where he set the single-season rushing record. Let Saquon Barkley go for it. He doesn't need 34 carries. In fact, Barkley, based on his success against the Giants, might only need 15 carries on Sunday. And if he breaks the record, Dickerson can shove it. How's that sound? And if it doesn't happen, by the way, fine. But it's history. Like, there's legitimate history. This is like an incredible record. Given the way that the league has gone, where it's a very pass-heavy league, to have a running back that like was cast aside by the team that drafted him, and for that guy to go to a division rival, cross 2,000 yards, and now have the chance to set the single-season record, it's pretty damn good. The script writers did a very good job this year. Okay. Now, I want to get to some other stuff. One of the things that I want to get to is a couple of the things that were pros and cons, we'll say, of 2024 in Philly sports. And then I want to take a look ahead to 2025. And there are some things that I want to make a few predictions about. And I encourage the people who are in the live chat, if you want to make some predictions as well, I'll bring them up here on the screen. I want to know what your highs and lows were for 2024. So I'm going to let's kind of get into some of the things that went well in Philly sports and some of the things that didn't go so well. Let's start with some basics. And I'm gonna first go to a group of people who don't get a ton of love in the Philly sports landscape, and that's Philadelphia Union fans. You once again watched your team go out and run it back after running it back. And the team went from being an MLS Cup finalist a couple of years ago to now missing the playoffs. You now watch guys who had been critical parts of that team have been moved. The manager has been fired. The owner claims that he's willing to spend money, but has done anything and everything to show you that that is just simply not the case. And so now the Philadelphia Union, the year in review, is that running it back after running it back after running it back doesn't work and ultimately leads to diminishing returns. And now, going into 2025, who the hell knows? We'll get there a little bit later on. But why do I start with the Union? Because it also ties very closely to 2024 for the Philadelphia Phillies. Because the Phillies largely decided to running it back. And based on the offseason through the morning of December 30th, 2024, the Philadelphia Phillies very much appear to be also running it back after running it back. They have not added a high-quality starter. Jesus Luzardo could be a very good starter if they can keep him healthy. But he's not a number 1 starter, probably not a number 2 starter, could maybe be a number 3. It just so happens that you have a couple of those guys as well in Ranger Suarez who could be waiting on a big contract. Christopher Sanchez kind of proved that he could sort of be a number 3 starter. But you didn't go out and get an ace. You once again missed out on a top Japanese prospect who apparently didn't even want to meet with you. Once again, that is not a good look. That's not great. You watched the New York Mets go out and make the signing of the offseason thus far in Juan Soto going to the Mets. You met that with Max Kepler. 2024, for as good as there were stretches leading into the All-Star break for the Phillies, things really fell apart post-London series, certainly post-All-Star break, where it was roughly a 500 team. And then you got bounced in the first round by your division rival, the New York Mets. You actually won the division, Phillies. Good job. You won the division. Part of that was also because the Braves fell apart physically, lost a lot of guys, but you never put your foot on their throat. You never put your foot on the Mets' throat when you had the chance, displayed no killer instinct, and you lost. And now, looking to 2025, I'm not exactly sure things are going to get better, but we'll get there as well in a second. Philadelphia Flyers. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your year in review. At the very start of 2024, it appeared that hope was maybe going to be lost, maybe not. There were some changes at the goalie position, we'll say. The guy who was viewed as the franchise cornerstone, at least in net, no longer playing hockey, at least for now, as he awaits a probable trial in connection with some horrific accusations made against him and against some of his former teammates at the Canadian national team. So he was gone. And what do you have left? You have a goalie situation that has a guy that was viewed as the 1B in Sam Ersson. You have Ivan Fedotov. You have Alexei Kolosov. Within this year, we also saw Alexei Kolosov potentially take his puck and go home to Belarus. Didn't want to play for the Phantoms after getting brought over here, having the opportunity to suit up for the Phantoms, get jumped in line by Fedotov. All of that happened this year. Seems kind of crazy. Matvei Mishkov came over early. That was nice. That was a good thing. For the first time in probably a decade, the Flyers have an actual prospect worth giving a damn about. The Flyers also lost Cutter Gauthier, which was also not a very good thing for this organization. Not in the least bit. Actually, one of the worst things that could have happened to this organization, because in doing so, you traded for an injured defenseman who has not looked anywhere remotely like the player that you thought you were getting, who was supposed to be, at the very least, a legitimate quarterback on top power play unit. And Jamie Drysdale has looked anything but. So 2024 in review for the Flyers. You have lost your number one goalie to some accusations and a probable trial. Your 1B hasn't looked particularly good since coming back off of IR this season. You had one guy kind of flee the country, then come back, and you still haven't sent him down. We don't know if he actually belongs at this level or not in Alexei Kolosov. You have another guy that you gave a contract to that came out of nowhere that you ended up bringing over after he had to go serve his military service in Russia. He got to come over and play, but he's number 3 on your depth chart, and for some reason you're carrying 3 goalies, and I'm Fedotov. Mishkov came over, looks great. You don't have a good center to play with him, and a number of the young guys have had very up and down seasons. That sounds about right? You also drafted in hockey purgatory, and it looks like you could be set to do the same again in 2025. We'll get back to that in a second. Philadelphia 76ers. LOL. Yeah, the start of the year wasn't particularly great. Another disappointing end to a season, and yet you went out in the offseason, you acquired probably the best free agent available, depending on where you stood on whether or not LeBron James was ever actually available. But you went out and you got Paul George. Now, things haven't gone exactly according to plan, and Joel Embiid presumably got hurt sometime between the Olympics and the start of the season. You've had a lot of ups and downs. Joel Embiid shoves Marcus Hayes. Some would consider that a great thing. Some would consider it not. But now what we've seen here at the end of 2024 is just a glimpse of what could be with the big three of Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George. They are undefeated in games in which those three guys have suited up, started the game together, and ended the game together. And you exercised some demons on Christmas Day by getting a win against a much heated rival in the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day. So your outlook going into 2025, surprisingly, looks pretty good. Philadelphia Eagles. Last year didn't end well. Last season did not end well at all. And an early exit in the playoffs against the Bucs had fans reeling. Was this really going to be the team? Was it still the team that got off to such a hot start that had an absolutely epic collapse and then practically no-showed against the Bucs? Would they be able to turn things around? Would they fire the coach? Would they look to move the quarterback? Were they going to move their number one wideout? What were they going to do at running back? After one heck of an offseason, after the reemergence of linebackers and former draft picks from SEC teams, all of a sudden the Eagles defense, led by Vic Fangio, looks like arguably the best one in all of the league. Kellen Moore's addition to the offensive coaching staff has now taken this Eagles team to new heights. And Saquon Barkley's addition has been nothing short of a masterstroke of genius. And now with 1 week left in the season, you could potentially have a running back that you acquired via free agency after being discarded by an absolute dogshit organization from within your own division. You have the chance to get that guy the single season rushing record. That's 2024, a recap. Some highs, some lows. And we'll take a look at 2024, but I do want to get over to the comments here really quick because I want to see what stood out to people. We just covered 5 of the teams. Don't expect me to do any more than 5. I'm just not doing it. All right, let's go. Sean C. says, a con. The Union reverting back to pre-2019 versions of themselves is going to be a painful few years again. I think that's possibly true. Sean C. also says, still without a manager, by the way. Campus a few weeks away. PR move. Kevin Sullivan might get more than 100 total minutes. It's not great. Sean C. said people were destroying Dombrowski, but they groveled at his feet after the Luzardo trade. I'm not groveling at his feet. I think that could end up being a good trade, but I don't think he's like an ace of a staff, and I don't think he's the number 2. So, like, good job by going out and, like, fortifying the middle of the rotation. Great. Do I care? No. Because you know what costs the Phillies again this year? The bats going cold in the postseason. You know what Luzardo doesn't do? Hit. Okay. We're getting some predictions in here as well. Lots of predictions. Landro says the 2024 Flyers equals the year of the faux rebuild. Yeah, I'm not totally sure about what this rebuild is. We'll see. Sean C. says the Gauthier trade makes their handling of the Kolosov issue even more perplexing. Steadfast making Gauthier earn his spot, but let's let the 22-year-old Belarusian have you by the balls. It's a fair critique to have. It's certainly one reading of the situation. Now, there are people within the organization who would say that's not what's happening and that they're not worried about him going to Belarus and they're not worried about him trying to go back to the KHL. But then the question is, once again, like, why are you carrying 3 goalies? Because, like, Fedotov is getting no work. Like, what was the point? What is the point? Okay. So that was 2024. Now, I see a lot of comments here about predictions for 2025. We'll get there, and then we're going to do the drawing. Here's where I'm at for 2025. Now, you have to be very careful here, all right? And if I'm being honest, I don't like making year-long predictions for teams. And I am Rustradamus. But the idea of trying to plan out an entire year, I think the farthest I can probably go is the spring. But I will try to put on the Rustradamus hat here for a second, and I'll give you some predictions. I think the Eagles are going to at least make the NFC Championship game. I think there's a very strong chance they make the Super Bowl. And if they do make the Super Bowl, they will win it. I don't think that it's a scenario where you make it, you run into Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo, and you can't get it done. I think that if the Eagles do make the Super Bowl, they'll win it. I think that they could face a very tough challenge in an NFC Championship game where you'll probably have to be on the road for either Minnesota or Detroit. I think it'll be a hard-fought game. I think that both of those teams are very talented. I don't want to look past what the Eagles are going to have to do against Green Bay, but I think Green Bay is also kind of fraudulent. I ultimately think that the Eagles team is going to be good enough to make the Super Bowl, and if they do, I think they'll win it. I think that there have been a lot of lessons learned between last year and this. A lot of things that this team has learned about one another in that locker room. There's a cohesiveness to this team that feels special. There is a cohesiveness to this locker room that feels very much like the Nick Foles-led team. One of the things that we didn't mention earlier is that Jordan Mailata referred to Tanner McKee as the Mormon Missile. I'm not going to say that it's quite as weird as the shrine that was made. Was it Chris Long was the one who made the shrine to Nick Foles in his locker stall? But there's something special about that group of guys. And it makes me think that whether or not Barkley gets to go for the record or not, there's something that just in my gut says this offense, if healthy, and there's a big if, and the big if is Jalen Hurts and getting out of concussion protocol. There's just something so unique about this team and about the dominant passing game and the even more dominant rushing game, and the fact that this defense has had such huge contributions from rookies and vets alike. They look so much deeper than anyone expected. I think it's a special team. I think the Eagles, I think they win. I think they win in New Orleans. That's prediction number one. Prediction number two, I think the Phillies are set to disappoint us all. And I don't even know if it's really going to matter from the get-go. Now, this is, of course, based on what the roster is as of December 30th. If the Phillies go out and get a top-end rotation piece at some point over the next few months, if they go out and they get an actual impact bat through a trade, then, obviously, the prediction's going to change. But as currently constructed, this Phillies team, to me, isn't significantly better than the one that just got bounced by the Mets in the postseason, which I don't think was that much better than the team the year prior. I think that the Phillies are kind of on a downward swing, and I don't feel that there's any reason to buy into this team until next fall, when you're hopefully trying to make another playoff run. Because I think the Braves are going to bounce back, and I think that the Mets are going to actually be a good team. You don't add an impact bat like Juan Soto and have an owner that's willing to spend like Cohen is, where they're not going to get the job done. I know that the Mets have always been a joke, but there's part of me that thinks, you know what, this year might actually, the Mets might show you how it's done. Now, could the Mets fall apart? Sure. But I don't see it with the Phillies. I think the team I'm actually the lowest on going into 2025 is the Phillies. I will be shocked if this team makes it to a World Series next year, barring there being a significant acquisition. I'm not even sure they get out of the first round of the playoffs. You could even sell me on the idea that they might not even make the playoffs, or that they're going to have to do the play-in game. I am not bullish on the Phillies going into 2025. I wasn't bullish on them last year going into the season, and this season coming up, I'm not feeling it. As of right now, can't keep running it back. You have to make some actual trades and make some actual impact acquisitions. Everyone else is doing it. The Dodgers have gotten better. Good luck getting past the Dodgers and trying to make it into a World Series with this roster. That's prediction number two. Prediction number three. I think the Sixers are going to get it beyond the second round in the playoffs. Now, I know that it seems incredibly insane to throw out the notion that the Sixers are going to make the playoffs, just given the rocky start that they had. I think that there's a good chance here that Paul George and that Joel Embiid are going to be able to remain remotely healthy going into the new year, and that perhaps once they are all playing together, as I've been saying, get 2 out of the big 3 to play together in 3 out of every 4 games, and you're going to win a lot because the Eastern Conference is mostly slop. I think there's an entire scenario here that could play out where the Sixers end up pulling off an upset in the first round, because I don't think they're going to break into the top 4. I think they'll pull off an upset in the first round, and I think there's a good chance, depending on the matchup, that they could end up winning a second-round series. And wouldn't that be something that after many years of the Sixers being in that top 4 and underachieving, that this is the year that they get hot to end the season and that they pull off upsets? I think the Sixers actually get beyond the second round of the playoffs this year. That then takes me to the Union. I'm sorry, Union. It's not going to be a good year. I'm sorry, Union fans. It's not going to be a good year. Sorry, Sons of Ben. The groveling that you did to ownership and the lack of any kind of demonstration that made any kind of actual impact because you're afraid you're going to hurt grown adults' feelings on the field, that will not pay dividends for you in 2025. I don't think the Union are going to be particularly good. Could it change? Sure. I still think that Ernst Tanner is one of the best front office executives in all of Major League Soccer. But given what the roster is right now, given the fact you don't have a manager, I'm not loving 2025. That leads me to the last team. The last team is the Philadelphia Flyers. I have to be honest, I have no idea. This is the team that is the hardest to predict because I am not a huge believer in what they are doing currently. I don't think that the Flyers can afford to get through another trade deadline making only one move. To me, you have to move at least 3 roster players by the trade deadline because you've got to lower that ceiling, lower that floor. You cannot pick again around 15 or 14. You need to put yourself in position where like you get a little bit of lottery luck. Finish somewhere in the top 7, as in like the teams with the 7 or with one of the teams with the 7 fewest point totals in the league. That gives you the ability to have some lottery luck to maybe jump into one of those top 2 spots, or at the very least, it gives you a little bit of insurance in case somebody does jump you, that you still remain in that like top 8 or so. I don't know what to think. Do I think the Flyers could trade Scott Laughton in 2025? I think they have to. Do I think that they could trade Rasmus Ristolainen in 2025? I think they kind of have to. Do I think that they will trade Morgan Frost or Joel Farabee? I think at least one of those guys can go. I would expect that by the end of 2025, I would guess that of those 4 players, Frost, Farabee, Laughton, and Risto, at least 2 are gone. At least 2 are gone by this time in 2025. Now, will it matter? Will the Flyers get to pick at or near the top of the 2025 NHL draft? I don't think so as of right now. Here's the bigger prediction. Will John Tortorella start 2025 as the head coach? I think he will. I think they want to see this thing out. If Tortorella doesn't start 2025, I think it's going to at least be positioned publicly as his choice. And if Tortorella doesn't start the season, the 2025-2026 season as the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, it's going to be because he wants to hand the reins off to Brad Shaw. I would not expect an external hire at head coach. And then you would see Tortorella move into some kind of front office or advisory role. Those are my predictions for 2025. Keep in mind, I have to take into account the end or the second half of some of these seasons to start the year, and then you start. That's where I'm at right now. All right, I'm going to go over to some of the predictions here from the lovely people, and then we're going to do the redrawing, and then we're going to head out. Let's see. Greg over on YouTube says Painter named one of the starters for 2025 as a prediction. That's interesting. Chris Freed says Peter Laviolette will be relieved of his coaching duties before Torts. I think that's true. Andrew Fawcett says, think Torts finishes the year, Lavi's gone next month. Also possible. Chris Freed says, prediction, Vikings versus Chiefs Super Bowl. That'd be interesting and sad. Chris Freed says, prediction, Embiid has an on-court incident that forever damages his image and reputation. Oh my gosh. What could that be? Damn. Ford says, I also don't think the Eagles make the Super Bowl. I think the Lions do, but we'll see. I'm so sick of the Chiefs. I think we can all agree that if nothing else, like let's just not the Chiefs. Like that's it. If the Eagles don't make it or don't win it, like at least just not the Chiefs. Chris Freed says, prediction, Phillies miss the playoffs in 2025. I am very much there. I just don't think the Phillies are going to I don't see it. Let's see. Chris Freed says, prediction, Flyers will not win the Stanley Cup so long as Comcast remain the majority owner of the club. So that's beyond 2025. That's like forever. Like the thought there is that like in perpetuity, as long as Comcast owns the majority of the club, they won't win a Stanley Cup. That's pretty wild. Okay. Let's see. Sean C says, prediction, Embiid suffers yet another weird injury in April, misses the start of the playoffs or the play-in. Oof. Woof. Let's keep going. I saw a few more. Ford says his prediction, Phillies will miss the playoffs. Also predicts the Sixers will not get out of the second round. Woof. Also brutal. Okay. Now I think it's time to get to... Well, I have one other thing. I have one thing that's like totally unrelated, and we're going to get to the thing. I have to, in the background here, set up the wheel again because I didn't set it up ahead of time. There were a couple of other things that happened at the Eagles game that I just wanted to show everybody here really, really quick. There was one about Jerry Jones getting chirped by Eagles fans, which was hilarious. But I have an actual problem, and it really does come back around to something between 2024, 2025, and I am just so sick and tired of this. I'm going to throw it over here really quick, and I want to see if anybody else just gets as annoyed by this as I do. I'm all for giving kids a ball at the game. I'm all for giving fans of teams a ball at the game. But there is one thing I cannot support. There is one thing I will not support, and that I am sick of seeing, and it's this. I am so sick of Mike Trout getting the ball at Eagles games. I am so sick and tired of seeing Mike Trout be treated like a Make-A-Wish kid. Mike Trout is a grown-ass adult who has won multiple MVPs, can't stay healthy, opted to not come play for the Philadelphia Phillies. He continues to remain out in obscurity for an Angels team that will not make the playoffs, and then he gets to, wrap up the season early enough to come back and watch as many Eagles home games as he wants. Stop treating Mike Trout like a Make-A-Wish kid that every time you get the ball into the end zone or there's a turnover, I have to go watch an Eagles player hand the ball to Mike Trout. Do we know, does Mike Trout give these balls away? Does he go to Chop after the game and go meet a small child and give them an Eagles ball? Because if he does, I retract everything. But this is just Mike Trout getting a ball and putting it on the mantle or putting it in a display case at home. Get the hell out. I am so saying, oh, Mike Trout, he's a real Philly guy. Mike Trout, he's a real Philly fan. Oh, Mike Trout, shut the hell up. Stop it. Stop. It's one thing if Eagles players want to go down to the end zone and they want to celebrate with Mike Trout, cool. Mike Trout doesn't need a football. Mike Trout needs a functioning, healthy body and maybe a little bit of gumption and maybe some huevos, some cojones to maybe get his team into the playoffs or to demand a trade and go to a market that actually cares about baseball and can actually, get the job done. That's what Mike Trout needs. He doesn't need a goddamn baseball or football or hockey puck or basketball. He's broken me. I just can't handle it. I am so sick. Mike Trout, he's a real great Philly fan. Boy, you gotta love to see the passion for... No! Mike Trout had the opportunity a few years ago to test free agency, or perhaps to demand a trade, but definitely to test free agency, and come on over to Philadelphia. When Bryce Harper signed here, he alluded to a local guy, who's going to be a free agent in a year. And what did Mike Trout do? He re-signed with the Angels. No one cares. Not a single soul cares. You know who cared? Major League Baseball. The commissioner's office cared because it meant that the guy that they were trying to make the face of baseball was once again going to continue to live in obscurity for a team no one cares about. Okay, I'm done. I feel a little bit better. It's just because you watch the games, right? And you watch the Eagles games, and there's that beautiful thing where they give the ball to a child, and that's a core memory for that child. Or A.J. Brown throws the ball into the stands to a guy, and then ultimately they have that moment where he asks the guy for the ball back because it was Tanner McKee's first passing touchdown, and the fan was like, "Hey, can I get a jersey?" The guy was smart. The guy at least had a good head on his shoulders that yeah, I'll give you something, but it has to be worth my time, worth my effort, right? For example, there was this, okay? A.J. Brown asked the fan in the stands that he threw the ball to, not knowing it was Tanner McKee's first touchdown, can I get that back? And the fan said, yeah. Can I have a jersey? So A.J. Brown post-game goes and finds the fan. He takes his jersey off. He signs the jersey for the fan, right? Because that's just good. That's good PR. That's good training from the PR staff. That's a good dude in A.J. Brown who's yeah, I'll sign a game-worn jersey. Gives it to the guy. The guy's like, I got you. He ended up getting interviewed by a couple of the local TV stations. It was just a really cool moment, right? That was great. I like that. That's a good story. There's a dude who, listen, in fairness, the Tanner McKee ball isn't going to get you a lot of money, right? It's not like Saquon Barkley breaks the single-season rushing record on a touchdown and they throw the ball into the stands and it's oh, that ball's actually worth something. All right, so it's not like there's much of a market for Tanner's first touchdown, but the guy at least has the presence of mind. Hey, jersey? And A.J. Brown's yeah, I'll give you a jersey. That's a totally fine moment. You know what I don't need? Mike Trout getting a ball. I don't need to see Mike Trout getting a football. No, Darius, like, big plays. Like, we gotta go. Mike Trout, great guy. He's a multiple MVP. We love Mike Trout. Oh my gosh, do you know he grew up in New Jersey? You know he was an Eagles fan growing up. You know still an Eagles fan? I don't care. I am so sick of it. Genuinely, I'm so sick of it. I can't stand it. When I see Mike Trout now, when I see him in the end zone and they give him a ball, I am so freaking aggravated, agitated. Stop. I would love to be wrong. I would love for somebody to point out, hey, Russ, Mike Trout actually does give those balls to children after the game. It's part of a Make-A-Wish thing that he does, or his foundation does. And I'd be like, you know what? That's on me. Now, it's partially on him for that not being public knowledge, but that's on me. But I just imagine that Mike Trout at this point has a display case in his house somewhere. Presumably there's one in New Jersey. Maybe there's one out in California. And he's got all these Eagles footballs. And they're just in a beautiful display case. And I sit back and I go, why? What are we doing? Also, if you're like, hey, it'd be great to have Mike Trout on this Phillies team. No, it wouldn't. Well, that's an impact bet. No, it's not. A few years ago, maybe. I love the fact that, by the way, I expected some hate in the comments, but we have people that apparently seem to be feeling very similarly, including Dershire, who says he should be treated as a traitor, turn his back on his hometown team. He did. Now, Jamie claims that she read that Trout does give the balls to other kids. Well, we'll see, but does not disagree with the point. Jacqueline D checks in, says, dying laughing, speak the truth. Thank you, Jacqueline. That's what I'm here for. Okay. We have people like going after Rasheed Wallace. I will not go after Rasheed Wallace. I saw that man throw a haymaker before. There's just no chance. Rasheed Wallace can do whatever he wants. People saying that A.J. Brown's a class act. I love it. Okay, anyway. We need to get to the redrawing of the drive to 500 because, unfortunately, after waiting a week, I did not hear from the listener of the show or the subscriber to the YouTube channel. And that was unfortunate because, as everyone here knows, the person who wins the drawing gets the jersey of their choice worth up to $175. So I waited a full week. I did not hear from the first winner, which means that we have to move on to a new drawing. And I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently this week. I don't know if I'm going to do the wheel because I saw that there were people who were complaining that the wheel wasn't, it didn't like do a full circulation or something. It didn't do a full rotation. I'm going to try a different site altogether. Let me see how many names I'm allowed to put. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 entries. I'm doing the same thing as last week, where it's the first 500 subscribers, they get 5 entries each, and then anybody past 500 gets 1 each. Let me do, can I go to another one? Oops. And then we'll go 2, 3. Oops. 4, and then 5. Okay. So this wheel looks absolutely absurd, just like last week's did. Now, here are the rules for the Drive to 500 drawing. If the person whose name appears on the wheel this week, if that person doesn't claim the jersey within a week, so by this upcoming Sunday, which I think is the 5th, if the person doesn't reach out to me via DM to the channel, to my personal Joy on Broad, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter account, whatever, if I don't hear from this person, or via email, russ@joymediallc.com, if I don't hear from this person, then we're going to do the redrawing next week, next Monday, the 6th. We will do the drawing next Monday. And the only people who will qualify are the ones who are joining us live on the stream. It's the only fair way I can do it. So I have the giant wheel. Do I want it to be somebody who's in the comments currently? I don't have a preference either way. But as you can see here, after doing the thing where the first 500 people, anybody who is public, they get 5 entries each, and then the people who are after 500 get 1 each. You can see there are 847 entries into the contest today. Here we go. Remember, the winner gets the jersey of their choice worth up to $175. What better way to wrap up 2024 than by maybe having somebody who's in this chat right now winning it, or somebody who listens after the fact or watches after the fact, because I love and appreciate each and every one of you just as much as any other. All right, here we go. Spin. Here we go. There goes the wheel. My hands are off. The winner on the redrawing is Lenda Joseph. I have seen Lenda Joseph in the comments section before on this show, and I have seen Lenda Joseph in the comments section before on So the Goalie. I do know, and I can confirm that Lenda Joseph is at least a human being who has been on the YouTube streams before, which is an improvement, presumably, over the first person. So, Lenda Joseph, if you watch the show, listen to the show, you have won the jersey of your choice worth up to $175. You have until this upcoming Sunday to reach out to me and to claim your jersey. Lenda Joseph, well done. Well done. Allison also confirms, says, I recognize the name. Andrew Fawcett also recognizes Len. Len has been here and has been over on Snow the Goalie. So that's at least somebody who has been around. Now, Ford is maybe bringing up a good point. Ford is very upset that the people who are lifeblood of the show, who are constantly commenting, that they have nothing to show for it. I might come up with, at some point here very soon, a separate drawing. It won't be a jersey of your choice at $375. But I might put together some kind of a drawing for live-only viewers, just to appease that rowdy bunch. But it won't be today. Anyway, Lenda Joseph, if you watch, if you listen, get in touch with me. Get the jersey of your choice worth up to $175. That's very cool. At least it's somebody whose name I recognize, and I didn't have to double check the spreadsheet and be like, is that a real person? It is. So we're good. Okay. With that, the 2024 season of the Russ Joy Show has ended. We will be back on Wednesday. Wednesday is New Year's Day. You know who's not going to be hungover? This guy. You know who's going to be doing a show on New Year's Day? This guy. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I mentioned earlier that when we talk about 2025, I'll tell you what we do. We used to do pork and sauerkraut mashed potatoes. Instead, what we do is we do bosom. If you don't know what bosom is, Google it. B-O space S-S-A-M. Look for the Dave Chang recipe for bosom. It is the most incredible thing I have ever had. We get a pork butt or pork shoulder. It has a glaze that you make. You rip the meat off after you slow roast it, and you can put it on lettuce wraps. And there's all different sauces that you make. Some gochujang based sauce. There's like a ginger scallion sauce. There are a few others. It is the most amazing thing, and we make it every year for New Year's now. And as much as I love pork and sauerkraut, I have to tell you, bosom's incredible. Maybe I'll take a picture. Perhaps I will show you the making of the bosom on the New Year's Day episode of the show. So that's that. Let's see. Oh, Allison says that she sent me the picture, so we'll end there. Esbury, by the way, says that they're a Westchester alum. Love the Rammy bobblehead. Thank you. Go Rams. All right, let me see. What's this thing that... So Allison said earlier in the show that I look like Kurt Russell's friend in a movie. I forget which one. Oh, I'm offended now, but I'll pull it up. I mean, I know that I put on some pounds in 2024, Allison, but okay. This is what Allison said I look like. I look like Kurt Russell's friend in whatever this movie. I mean, in fairness, the facial hair. Let me see. Can I fully? Can I double, triple chin this? Hold on. Let me see. We'll do a little zoom. Do a little zoomage here. Hold on. There we go. There you go. So that's where we're at on the show today. I appreciate this, though. Allison says, not in weight or cleanliness. I do appreciate that. Anyway, that's the end of 2024. I'll be back in the new year with a new episode. And as I mentioned last week, Video Guy is going to hopefully be taking the show to a whole other level. I look forward to continuing to grow this channel with each and every one of you. I appreciate all the people, of course, who join me live. But those of you who watch after the fact, those of you who promote the show on your social media feeds or via text or whatever to friends and family, I appreciate you tremendously. Those of you who listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, I appreciate you just as much as anyone else. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to The Russ Joy Show on YouTube and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can choose. You can watch it. You can listen to it. Whatever makes you happy. In the meantime, we'll be back in the new year. I'll see you guys next year. Sean C. says Nate Bargatze was so 2023. Yeah, there's something there. Andrew Fawcett says, Happy New Year. I'll be listening before I watch Texas win. Ooh. Greg over on YouTube says, great show, Rusty, in the next year. Appreciate it. JH. Love seeing the Bucky's Beaver. JH, you're a mess. Jamie says, Happy New Year. Ford, an entire year of chatting nonstop and supporting. Dee Dee says, Happy New Year, everyone. Be safe and enjoy. Nico says, thanks for his Happy New Year. Andrew Foss with a Happy New Year. Everybody, I hope you have a great New Year's Eve. Please be safe. If you're going to drink on New Year's Eve, figure out your right ahead of time. Don't do anything stupid. I look forward to talking to all of you in the new year. Enjoy New Year's Eve. Enjoy New Year's Day. I will talk to you bright and early, January 1st, here on The Russ Joy Show. Until then, I'm Russ Joy, but you knew that because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Thanks for supporting the show in 2024, and I will see you all next year in 2025 here on The Russ Joy Show.